I'm not, like I said, a pastor. And I would just echo a little bit of what was said in the children's message, is that sometimes we think to be a missionary you have to be trained and you have to be a good preacher and a good speaker. But we're all missionaries in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our workplace. I'm in the hospital. And this was a trip that I went on not as a real missionary, but just as a person going on a trip with a bunch of pastors. I wasn't quite sure how I would fit in for a whole week traveling around with a group of pastors. But basically, I wanted to spend a little time today kind of telling you and explaining to you a little bit about the mission of the EPC. I understand you're relatively new to the EPC, and I'm not a lifelong member of the EPC either, but we've been attending North Park Church for about 6 years or so. And the EPC, basically as a world mission focus, has decided to try to take the gospel where there is no church, or whether it's very almost hostile in a lot of ways to Christianity. And so they have picked a lot of Muslim countries in order to plant missionaries there and work. The organization that part you're going to hear part about is also called EduNations. And EduNations is an organization. Do I hit the red one?
No.
Go forward.
It's cantankerous.
Okay.
It's
this one?
This one.
This one. Okay.
That good.
All right. So, that's the pointer. Okay. So EduNations, well, let me just start. I kind of got off track with my slides. So Sierra Leone is this green little country right here on the west coast of Africa. There we go. And the way EduNations basically started its mission was to try to educate people and children, especially in other countries, and through the education process give them opportunity, but also part of the education curriculum is that of Christianity and part of their curriculum. And it was all based, started by a group of couples that had direct interest in some of the children of Sierra Leone. So Sierra Leone itself, as I mentioned, is on the west coast. It's about the size of South Carolina if we think about it in some of our states. The capital is Freetown, which is right on the coast. It's really considered tropical. There's a rainy season, which they're in right now, which lasts from May to December. And there's a dry season really from December to April. So we traveled there in April, which was right near the end of the dry season. They have a democratically elected government. The population is about 6 million. And if you're born in Sierra Leone, your life expectancy is a little over 40 years. The primary, English is the primary language that they speak. Their money measure is what's called the leone, and a dollar is about 4,300 leones. So it's a little hard trying to do those calculations when it's such a big difference in numbers. Because you'd think that something costs thousands of leones, you think, wow, that must be really expensive, but it's not so much. And they're based on, their system is using the metric system. So as far as what is done in the country, there's some agriculture. In some of the wetter areas where there's ability to farm rice, they will grow rice. The rest of the country, there are some places where they have corn, not as nice as the corn we have out here, but they try to grow corn. There's a mining industry. There's a lot of iron ore and bauxite and minerals in the country that are being basically mined by other countries that are coming in and trying to take the resources and then ship them back to their own country, not used in their own country so much. And if you have enough left over, you could try to take it to the market. Basically, there's not any big department stores or anything. People sell things on the side of the street. Papaya were very common there as people were trying to sell. And this is kind of the hardware store if you want to go to the hardware store. A lot of people have to buy gasoline in canisters and then take that around. A lot of times the gas stations were closed part of the time while we were there. So if you didn't have some stored up in a few gas cans, then you'd be out of luck. There's no trash pickup, so you can imagine what that would be like. There's a lot of people are afraid to drink the water, so there's water bottles everywhere because people buy the water, then they don't have anything to do with the water bottles. And so it's not the most kempt place. This is one of the rivers here in Freetown. So every little town that you drive through, you'll see a mosque rising above the treetops. And Islam is everywhere, even on the buses. It says, God bless Islam. So the group that I went with, this is Don Creasy and Betsy Reamer from Memorial Park Church. Bruce Allison, you may have met. He's part of the Presbytery, but he attends North Park Church. Bill Woodman is one of the pastors, I think, in this area.
Right up the road in Center, Grove City.
Okay. And then Samuel Sisse, he's the in-country employee of EduNations that helps coordinate things. Myself, Scott Graham. Scott's church is up around here too somewhere.
Chippewa?
Could be.
Chippewa.
Yeah. And then
Yep.
this is Pastor Bob. He's one of the Sierra Leones. And then the Stoffers, you may have met too from
Slippery Rock.
So this was our group. And we spent the first couple days in the city in Freetown, and during that time, Betsy had a chance to preach at one of the churches that we went to. Deb and Pastor Bill did a lot of puppet ministry and teaching with the kids. And then we did some baptizing in the ocean. This is in the Atlantic Ocean. So eventually we made it out into the countryside. And the trip that we went on this particular day that led us to the village of Fintonia was about the distance from here to Wexford. But instead of taking 30 minutes like it took me to drive here today, it was about 6 to 7 hours, okay, that it took. And this is because the roads look like this, okay, and this is just, again, at the beginning of the rainy season. And so there's, other traffic hazards as well. And on the way there, we would see some schools, okay, and this is one example of a school. This school does not even have walls, okay, but you can see classes in session. This is another school that we stopped by. This one was pretty much vacant, and you could see that basically inside there are a few benches, and they basically had to write on the wall, then kind of erase what they wrote on the wall, and then write again. That was their blackboard. So this is one of the schools that we stopped by that EduNations helps support. So there are a lot of schools that have been built around the country by the government, but they don't necessarily pay any teachers, or if they do have some teachers hired, they don't necessarily pay them. A lot of the schools are, the teachers are just people that live in the village that have gotten some education, and they volunteer basically to teach the kids. So this is one of the schools that EduNations has helped support. It's not projecting real well, but this is inside where they have some nice benches. They employ the teachers, and again, part of the curriculum includes, not just math and reading and writing. There's some health component to it, as well as some religious teaching. And a lot of what is needed is to supply the books, because people don't have books to read, the writing utensils or that kind of thing. So this is, again, on the way to Fintonia. Part of our trip was across a fairly large river, and this is the ferry to get across the river. So basically, there's let's see if you can see here, but there's a wire cable running here from one side of the river to the other. And basically, you drive your vehicle, they pull the planks off onto this little dock. You try to make sure you drive on the planks up onto the ferry, okay? And then they pull on this cable. There's about 4 guys will pull by hand the ferry across the river. And this time of year, my understanding is that the river's too high because of the rainy season, that they can't even get across this river. So the Fintonia is isolated from the rest of Sierra Leone, and that they can go up into Uganda, but they can't really even get into the main part of town. So then this is our vehicle on the ferry here. There's people that have dugout canoes like you learn about in elementary school, and I don't have a picture of that with me. I have about 800 pictures, but I only brought about 40 for today. So then we arrived in Fintonia, and this is a sign in the middle of town. And we went out to the school. Now was already a school there, okay, and these are some of the kids with their uniform. Again, there's Pastor Bill. And we did we tried to do some singing and some interaction with some of the kids inside. And if you look around, this is like the walls inside the school, and this is one of the ceilings inside the school itself. And part of the building was not even able to be used. There's a little boy just standing in the doorway, you can see, because a truck had somehow backed into the side of the building and broke the roof, and they didn't feel like it was safe to be inside anymore. I noticed part of the bulletin said something about the well. This is the well that was there, okay? And basically this is not projecting real well, but there's a woman inside with a pail, and she's down inside this well, dipping water and then passing it up to the people outside the well. So we had an opportunity to meet with the village elders, and they basically were had already kind of agreed to let Edunations come, and with Edunations comes a couple things. One, they know that it's a Christian organization, and they had and affiliated with the EPC, and so they took us out and showed us the area that they've donated some land for eventually building of a church, okay? And we prayed and dedicated that land. We also, part of the trip while we were there, interviewed several graduates from a Reformed Presbyterian seminary that's located in Freetown in Sierra Leone. The EPC was trying to look for some potential pastors, okay, to go to some of the villages in which they're sponsoring these schools. So this is Pastor Ruth and Dominic. Dominic and Ruth are the pastors that are being supported by the EPC to start a church in Fintonia. So we dropped them off, and this is the house here that they're going to be renting. And I have some pictures. It's very crude. It's like a kind of a mud brick home on the outside, and there are, there's like a room for your goats to come in, and there's a room for your food, and there's a bedroom, and that's about it. So this is not projecting well at all. North Park Church itself, along with Memorial Park, is sponsoring a school in Rakasa. There's another village where there was no school at all, and so that school was in the middle of being constructed while we were there, and that has opened now for school this fall. And we talked about the well. So this is the type of well that's being built along in conjunction with the school. One of the main jobs for the girls is to supply the family with water. And so you can imagine if they have to spend their day walking to the river or walking to wherever they can get the water and bring it back for the family, they don't necessarily have an opportunity to go to school like the boys do. So one of the strategies is to put a well at the school so that the girls can come to the school, have their classes, and then take water home with them at the end of the day, so that they can do both. And as you know, you're sponsoring 3 or 4 children. I see their pictures on the back. And basically what happens is that money is I think it's $28 a month goes to support a child. That helps pay for their uniform, helps pay for their books, helps pay the teachers that are in the school. and helps fund the principal and for the construction, that kind of thing. And so part of what we did, this is Betsy delivering the sponsor packet to one of the girls that was being sponsored. And so again, it's all centered around children. The way to evangelizing a country that's Muslim. I mean, Sierra Leone, my impression was much higher from what I read last night, about 60% Muslim, 30% Christian, 10% animism. I would think that it's really much higher proportion of people would really be Muslim than that. But basically the idea is that if you can reach the children are the ones that are going to be the future of that country, and hopefully will help spread the gospel to their family when they go home from the school from the day. And that's kind of the mission. And that's kind of how EduNations and the EPC all ties together. So that's pretty much all I had to share today, was to kind of give you an idea of what the mission is about. And like I said, there are going to be opportunities through the Presbytery, I think, for future trips. You don't have to be a missionary to go on a missions trip. I understand you've been active in Mexico and Jamaica and things in the past, and I would just encourage you to maybe think about an opportunity for someone from your church to maybe go on one of these trips in the future that might go to Fintonia and see what your contributions and other opportunities might be for you as a church.
Thank you very much.